I still remember the night the idea was born, not in some boardroom filled with slick suits or over a glowing laptop screen surrounded by the trappings of success, but in my cramped apartment, the kind with peeling paint on the walls and a kitchen counter that doubled as my office desk, where my best friend Ryan sat across from me, his eager eyes glinting with a hunger I mistook for encouragement, not envy. It was past midnight, the kind of hour where your brain dances between exhaustion and brilliance. And I had scribbled notes, diagrams, and half-baked sketches across a dozen sticky notes while Ryan kept nodding, tossing in a laugh here, a suggestion there, making me feel like he was the only person in the world who believed in me when nobody else did. Not even my own family, who thought I was chasing foolish dreams instead of finding a real job. The idea was simple, yet disruptive. A digital platform designed to connect small local artisans with global buyers without the exploitation of middlemen. A marketplace built not on greed but on fairness, something I had seen lacking in my own mother's struggles as she tried to sell her handmade jewelry for pennies on the dollar, while corporations mass-produced soulless imitations for fortunes. And when I explained this to Ryan, when I told him how I wanted to build something that would empower people like her, his face lit up like I had handed him the secret to immortality. But what I failed to notice then was that his excitement wasn't for me or for the artisans but for himself, for the gold mine he thought I had stumbled upon and foolishly shared with him without a contract. Without protection, just blind trust. Over the weeks that followed, Ryan became more and more involved, not in building the project or refining the model, but in listening, always listening, asking me questions late into the night about how I'd scale it, how I'd fund it, how I'd market it, his notebook filling with my words, disguised as his research. And though a tiny voice in the back of my head whispered that maybe I should slow down, maybe I should be careful, I silenced it because this was Ryan, the kid I'd grown up with, the guy who shared his lunch when I couldn't afford mine, the one who stood by me when my father walked out, and if there was anyone I thought I could trust with my dream, it was him. Looking back now, that was my first mistake, not the idea itself, not the naivete of believing in something bigger than myself, but the dangerous assumption that betrayal could never come from the people closest to you, that sometimes the knife waiting to carve you open was already sitting at your table, smiling, clinking a glass in your name, pretending to toast to your success while secretly planning to drink every drop of it for themselves. It was during one of those late-night sessions that I noticed the shift. The way Ryan's questions became sharper, more probing, less about us and more about how does this work again, or what if someone were to pitch this to investors before you. But instead of suspicion, I felt flattered, thinking maybe he was just testing me, pushing me to strengthen my vision, and so I poured everything out, my business plan, my roadmap, even the name I had envisioned for the platform, Artisan Link, which to me symbolized more than just a company. It symbolized my hope of connecting my mother's tired hands to a world that would finally value them, and Ryan nodded, wrote it down, and I thought nothing of it. Little did I know that while I was drowning in late-night ramen noodles and sleepless brainstorming marathons, Ryan was scheduling quiet meetings with venture capitalists, presenting my brainchild as his own, polishing my words into his pitch, and whispering promises of massive returns to men who had never even heard of me. Men who would soon believe he was the genius behind Artisan Link, while I remained in the dark, blissfully unaware that my best friend had already placed the first brick in the wall of betrayal that would soon bury me alive. If betrayal has a sound, it is silence. The kind of silence that hums under the surface while you laugh, while you share, while you trust. And Ryan mastered that silence, sitting across from me night after night, watching me build the empire he intended to steal. And I, blind and hopeful, gave him every tool he needed to stab me in the back. Not realizing that the lesson I was about to learn would not come from a textbook, not from a mentor, but from the cruelest teacher of all experience. The betrayal revealed itself not with a dramatic explosion but with a whisper, a subtle shift in the air that I almost missed until it was too late. One morning I woke up to a flood of notifications. Friends tagging me in a post about a brilliant new startup making waves on social media. A platform called Artisan Link, promising to revolutionize the way local artisans connected to buyers. Worldwide, the same exact name, the same model, the same words I had poured from my soul into Ryan's notebook. Only now, they were polished into a glossy pitch deck, stamped with his smiling face, his name under the title, CEO, his arms slung around investors I had never met. And as I stared at the screen, my stomach dropped as though the floor beneath me had caved in. Because this wasn't just an idea stolen, it was a piece of me ripped out and paraded for applause. I called Ryan that morning, my voice shaking, demanding an explanation, and he answered with that same easy calm he always carried, brushing me off with, "Relax, man, it's just business," as if those words could excuse the knife twisting between my ribs, as if a decade of friendship could be reduced to a clause in a contract I never signed. And when I pressed harder, he laughed, telling me I should be grateful, that I could maybe join later as a consultant if I proved myself useful, like a beggar at the gate of the empire I had built in his hands. I slammed the phone down, fury boiling over shame. And yet even in my rage I couldn't ignore the headlines multiplying. The praise flowing his way. Investors throwing money at him while my own bank account gasped for air, rent overdue, electricity threatening to flicker out. My mother's worried face asking if I was okay while I forced a smile through the burn of humiliation. Betrayal doesn't just steal your idea, it steals your identity, your sense of self, and Ryan had managed to strip me of both in one swift move, leaving me with nothing but the hollow echo of my own voice telling me I had trusted the wrong man. For weeks I spiraled, job applications piling up unanswered, nights spent replaying every conversation we had, trying to spot the exact moment he turned from friend to thief. But the truth was more brutal. He had always been waiting, always watching, and I had simply been too blind, too eager to believe in brotherhood to notice the greed in his grin. And yet, as low as I sank, as dark as the nights grew, something in me refused to die, a tiny ember glowing in the ash, whispering that I wasn't done, that Ryan might have stolen my idea, but he hadn't stolen my mind, my resilience, or my will to fight back. And slowly, painfully, that ember began to grow into a flame, one that would soon blaze hotter than Ryan could ever imagine. Rock bottom has a way of clarifying your vision, stripping away illusions until all that's left is the raw steel of who you are. And for me, those weeks of despair hardened into something sharper, resolve. I stopped wallowing and started researching, pouring every ounce of my pain into building a plan. Because if Ryan thought he could erase me from my own creation, he was wrong, dead wrong. Every sleepless night became a blueprint, every bitter tear a strategy. And I dissected Artisan Link's every move, studying his press releases, analyzing his beta platform. And what I saw made me both furious and hopeful. Furious because it was my skeleton he had draped with fancy clothes. Hopeful because I could see the flaws he was too arrogant to notice. Ryan had stolen the idea, yes, but he hadn't stolen my vision, the heart behind it, and in his rush to impress investors, he had stripped it of soul, turning it into just another exploitative marketplace with high fees and glossy marketing that looked good on paper but betrayed the very artisans it claimed to uplift. I realized then that my revenge wouldn't come from shouting the truth or dragging him into court I couldn't afford, but from building something better, something truer, something he could never replicate because it came from me, from my story, from my mother's tired hands stringing beads late at night. So I rebranded, sketched out a platform called TrueCraft, one that would not only connect artisans but also protect them, with transparent pricing, fair trade verification, and community-driven growth. And though I had no investors, no fancy offices, I had something Ryan had lost the second he chose greed over loyalty, authenticity. I reached out to small artisans personally, traveling by bus to meet them, listening to their struggles, building trust one handshake at a time. And slowly, a community formed around me, a quiet army ready to back my platform not because of profit margins but because they believed in it, believed in me. Each story I heard fueled me further. Each artisan who signed on was another brick in the foundation of my comeback. And though my body ached from sleepless nights coding, designing, and hustling, my spirit soared because I knew revenge was no longer just a fantasy, it was inevitable. And soon Ryan would learn that outsmarting me was his greatest mistake. The moment of reckoning began quietly. Like the calm before a storm, Ryan's Artisan Link had exploded fast, headlines praising him as a visionary. But cracks were starting to show, artisans complaining about unfair fees, customers frustrated with delayed orders, and while he scrambled to mouth, my army of artisans, spreading the word faster than any ad campaign could. I remember the first time an investor who had once ignored me reached out, curious about this grassroots platform making waves, and I almost laughed. The taste of vindication sharp and sweet, but I played it cool, knowing patience was the deadliest weapon. While Ryan burned through cash on flashy campaigns and lavish offices, I invested in people, in stories, showcasing artisans in raw, emotional videos that went viral not because of budgets but because of truth. And soon TrueCraft wasn't just competition, it was a movement, a mirror reflecting everything Artisan Link claimed to be but wasn't. The final blow came when I unveiled a partnership with a major fair trade organization. A deal Ryan had chased for months, but lost because his reputation had begun to sour. And when the announcement went live, social media erupted, headlines shifting from praising Artisan Link to questioning its ethics, while TrueCraft was hailed as the real deal. I didn't need to expose Ryan, the world did it for me. Every artisan he had cheated, coming forward, every flaw in his system magnified by the contrast of mine, and I watched as his empire, built on lies, began to crumble under the weight of truth. But the sweetest moment wasn't the headlines or the investors knocking on my door. It was knowing Ryan was watching. Knowing he realized too late that he hadn't stolen my idea, he had only borrowed my shadow while I kept the fire. And that fire was now burning his world to ash. When Ryan finally called me, his voice carried none of the arrogance it once did. No smug laughter, no casual dismissal, just the hollow tremor of a man drowning. And for a moment I almost didn't recognize him. He begged me to meet, said we could work together again, that we were brothers and could fix this. But when I walked into the cafe where he sat hunched over, his expensive suit wrinkled, his eyes ringed with sleepless desperation, I realized the balance of power had shifted completely. The same man who once told me to be grateful for scraps was now clinging to me like a lifeline, and it was intoxicating. He stammered apologies, excuses about pressure from investors, about how he never meant to hurt me, how it was just business. But I cut through his words with silence, letting him twist in it, because sometimes silence is the sharpest blade. Finally, I leaned forward and told him the truth, that he hadn't just stolen an idea. He had destroyed a friendship. That I had built TrueCraft not to compete with him but to prove to myself that I was more than his shadow. And that forgiveness wasn't mine to give, because it wasn't me he betrayed. It was every artisan he exploited. His eyes filled with tears then, real or rehearsed, I couldn't tell, but it didn't matter. Because the boy who once sat across from me, sharing midnight noodles, was gone, replaced by a hollow man who had traded loyalty for greed and lost everything. I stood, leaving him with the same words he once threw at me, only this time laced with finality: "It's just business." And as I walked away, the weight I had carried for months lifted, not because I had destroyed him, but because I had reclaimed myself, my vision, my power. Ryan would go on to fade into obscurity, Artisan Link collapsing under its own rot, while TrueCraft soared, not because it was mine but because it was real, built on truth and trust, and every success tasted sweeter knowing it was born from betrayal, turned to brilliance. In the end, my revenge wasn't in making Ryan beg, it was in never needing his forgiveness at all, because I had outsmarted him, outlasted him, and in doing so, finally set myself free.